Welcome back to the channel. I'm Cowboy Jojo and I'm going to take you on a continued exploration of Melbourne, showing you buildings that over the years have changed their use, which have been hard to identify. But with the help of Lost Melbourne by Heather Chapman and Judith Stillman, as well as the City of Lost and Found by Robyn Annear, we'll be able to discover what has become of them. Interesting to know that William the Wrecker pulled down hundreds of central city buildings.
Wrecking is an enjoyable pursuit. I mean, is there any actual pleasure?
Oh, it's great. I just love it.
You do?
Yeah, love it.
And many have gone, and those that remain have to be treasured and protected. Come with me and help me discover some of the relics and buildings that remain. For those too young to remember, it is surprisingly to discover that Melbourne was once internationally recognised for its Victorian architectural excellence. Disheartedly, many architectural treasures were demolished during the 1930s to the 1970s. Some of these buildings have become inefficient or even unsafe, warranting their demolition. However, a large proportion fell prey to a short-sighted view of progress. Dreary, boring concrete office blocks and car parks took their place. Often these buildings were themselves demolished after only a couple of years, adding insult to injury. I'm at St James Cathedral. It was built in 1839 and originally built on a 5-acre property set back from Collins Street corner. With the opening of the St Paul's Cathedral in 1891, St James lost its congregation. St James leaked so badly that on one occasion the pipes had filled with water. In May 1913, the historic church was condemned, and due to the public outcry and at the prospect of Melbourne's oldest church being demolished, it was agreed to be moved to its present site. It was Jim Whelan who dismantled the church and carted it in pieces to its new site. Some changes were made to the church. Its ceilings were lowered and columns were omitted, and the tower was altered. I'm at the gates of the Fawkner Cemetery. However, these gates were not built for the purpose of the cemetery. They actually belong to the fish market, which was built between 1891 and 1892 on Flinders Street, between King and Spencer Street. Beautifully built, this Victorian style building had a clock tower and spires. It was actually built on silt. Unfortunately, it was compromised and they decided to demolish it in 1959. These gates are the last reminder of the fish markets. Today, a modern building of offices replaces this on the site of the fish markets. Our next stop is Pentridge Jail, which is situated in the suburb of Coburg, an inner city of Melbourne. But originally, Coburg was called Pentridge until the stigma hurt and the public decided that it was time to change its name to Coburg. Let's go and have a look at this jail. I'm here at Pentridge Jail, built between 1857 and 1864. It was to become the most concentrated jail building campaign in Australian history. 5 parallel cell blocks, a 6-metre high wall, workshops, hospital and a separate division for female prisoners. Extensive work occurred in Pentridge in the 1920s. It became also the site of all executions until 1967, when the last prisoner was hanged, Ronald Ryan. This led to the abolition of the death penalty. The prison was seized in 1997 and sold to developers for residential, commercial and tourist development. The outer walls, main entrance and D subdivision cells have been retained. Last time I was here, I told you about the model school in Lost Building of Melbourne video. It was built in 1854 and demolished in 1933. Then in 1933, they built the College of Surgeons. In 2002, prior to building works, archaeologists began excavating. In the basement level of this present building, they discovered that it had been filled with the rubble, and amongst the stuff unearthed were 2 flights of stone stairs and recumbent sections of Doric columns, which have been conserved and preserved in the courtyard. And the set of gates which were re-erected at Taylor Park in Torquay, Victoria in 1933. I'm here at the grounds of the Melbourne University. I've got a few things to show you here, a couple of old relics, some statuary and the facade of the old New South Wales Bank. So come along with us and let's check these things out. Here I am at what was the statuary of the Colonial Mutual Building. I'm here at the grounds of the Melbourne University. This once graced the Colonial Mutual Building that was built in 1896. The building was demolished in 1960. And today you can actually see remnants of this building standing in front of the Melbourne Museum. The building was designed to be the grandest building in the Southern Hemisphere and to last forever. The new building was designed as fashionable. Today we find ourselves with a terrible, unfashionable building instead of a timeless one. There's a little bit of construction happening around me, so I hope you can hear me. This was the Colonial Bank doorway. The Colonial Bank was built in 1880. It was 3 stories and spiked with urns and pomp statuary. It was demolished in 1932. The ornate doorway was spared. The figures of the Britannia and Neptune reclined above the arched lintel, supported by a pair of muscular lackeys. The doorway was presented to the University of Melbourne and has been remounted at the foot entrance to the University car park. Replacing the Colonial Bank is now the Hoddle House offices. Modern in its time, ugly today, they were built in 1932. The Bank of New South Wales facade. This is all that remains of the Bank of New South Wales, which was built in 1858. The architect was Joseph Reed. It was inspired by the Library of St. Mark's in Venice. Situated in Collins Street, it was demolished in 1933 by Whelan the Wreckers. And being the finest piece of stonework in Melbourne, it was agreed that the Melbourne University had found a place for it. It stands proudly on the building of design. Where the Bank of New South Wales stood, a new building has taken its place. It has been replaced twice since 1933. The crown was placed here in 1986. Originally, it adorned the top of the red brick chimney erected in 1901 at the Carlton Brewery. Its principal function was to pre-stress the masonry with a compressive load, thereby giving the chimney strength to withstand high winds. It also served as a lightning arrestor. Our next stop is the Victorian Asylum and School of the Blind. So let's go and check this building out, people, see what we can find. I'm standing on the grounds of the Victorian Asylum School for the Blind, which opened up its doors in 1868. It pioneered education and welfare services for the blind. The architects of this neo-Gothic style were Crouch and Wilson. Prior to the existence of the asylum, blind people were unable to earn a living. The original purpose of the asylum was to provide a scholarly and musical education and training for employment in industry. The name changed to the Royal Victorian Institute for the Blind in 1891 and continued until the early 1980s. Finally, it merged with Vision Australia. Whilst many buildings of this complex were demolished, those that remain are now heritage protected. I have spoken to you about Montsalvat in a previous video, the artist colony. So we're going to take you there and talk about the hall. And some of the windows that have been included into this building are quite interesting. I'm at Montsalvat, Eltham, in Victoria. In 1888, the Royal Insurance Building was built at 414 Collins Street, Melbourne. It was demolished in 1938. The windows, as you see behind me, came from that beautiful Gothic building that was torn down. And Eustace Jorgensen incorporated them here. They were saved from the wrecker's pit and now are gracing this lovely old building here. In 1938, a restrained Art Deco style building replaced the Royal Insurance Building. But in about 1980, the stone facade was peeled off and replaced with a sleek curtain wall. Shows how low appreciation of Art Deco was in the 1980s. Well, this concludes our exploration of Melbourne's lost and found. Thanks to Robyn Annear and her book, we've been able to locate them. It seems a shame that Melbourne has lost so many of its old buildings, and yet quite a few still remain. But we hope that from our lessons that we will maintain what we have left behind for the future of generations to enjoy. As we see these modern buildings go up, I'm sure that our ancestors will be appalled to see that we have lost some outstanding buildings that were built so solidly. Anyway, from me, it's goodbye for now and look forward to seeing you on our next adventure. But thank you very much for coming along and I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Bye for now.